I'm talking to Spike. Hi, Spike.
Hi, Pete.
I'm sorry for shouting. There's no need
Oh,
to.
sorry.
No, I'm sorry for shouting. Um, but
Ah,
but for those who don't know, Spike is a author, artist, singer-songwriter from Vermont. You don't mind me saying that, no?
not at all. We're right here on the lovely shores of beautiful Lake Champlain.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. Now, the reason I ask the reason I ask Spike, does she mind
Skype with
me,
spice.
does she mind me saying where she lives, is simply because Spike and I came together because we're engaged in an endeavor mutually. I know that sounds quite, and it, could be, but, what it is we are both dedicated and devoted to exposing the fraud, abuses, and crimes of an organization that you might know as
Da, da, da.
Scientology. Yeah. I should have waited for your fanfare.
That's
Okay,
quite all
fanfare.
right. We didn't script this before. Maybe
No,
we
we
should have
didn't. We didn't
choreographed.
script it.
I
We
don't know.
didn't script it. Okay, Spike, fanfare.
Da, da, da.
Scientology.
Scientology.
Oh,
There we go.
I like that. That's actually quite good. So, we've only known each other for like quite a short while, but we became friends.
Several lifetimes, too, I'm sure.
Of course, yeah. We won't go into that.
Oh, we were probably together on Tijicac. We probably shared body things.
Yeah, but do we need to get into like beliefs? Should we just talk about facts?
This is true. It's just about facts. I was listening, by the way, to actually, that was the wonderful thing about, oh, I'm blanking on the name, our journalist talking to the man who just did Going Clear.
We
Help
talking?
my,
To,
I'm having a senior moment.
Tony Ortega.
Not Tony Ortega, but the gentleman who wrote Lawrence Wright, who was talking last night to,
Alex
oh,
Gibney. Alex Gibney.
No, he wasn't talking to Alex Gibney. He was talking to one of our sassier um, journalists who does a panel show, and I'm trying to think what it's called. It's on HBO.
Okay, is that in the US?
That's in the U.S. It's on one of our cable, and it's a panel discussion show, and the man is delightfully, wonderfully, once we start recording, I start blanking on my words. This always happens. But in any...
And people start messaging you, too.
Yes, that was Tori, actually. Would you mind holding, and maybe we can do a rewash here?
No, I think we should just carry on.
Oh, carry on? Okay, fair enough.
Well, if we just chat for about half an hour or
that's what I
so.
was looking for. And it's Bill Maher. See,
Yes, yeah.
Yes, Bill Maher.
I know the guy, yeah.
Yes, actually, he was talking to Lawrence Wright, and he was saying, yes, we laugh about the beliefs, but I mean, talk about the carpenter who, could turn water into wine. It's a matter of metaphor, and like I've always said, it's okay if the metaphor works, and if you can use it, good luck to you. No, it's the abuses we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I also mock the beliefs, and in my spare time, I build model volcanoes and put little boxes around the base. I'm working on building an H-bomb at the moment to drop on them. But that's what I do in my spare time. But here's what interests me. Okay, the HBO documentary is due for coming out pretty soon. Is there any kind of a buzz in the US about that?
Oh, well, you see, you've asked probably one of the worst geographical locations, because according to Scientology, we are nowhere. We don't even have an org in our state, so...
Lucky you.
Yes, exactly. So, though I can pretty much say that our United States media is really buzzing about it, and the folks that I know in our movement are buzzing about it here in the United States.
Yeah.
And it's certainly creating a buzz in our news, all my news feeds and everything that I've been watching. But as far as people around me in my town, oh, Scientology? Oh, yeah, aren't they doing a documentary? I heard about that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And it always fascinates me, and you've probably became aware of this over the last few weeks, that the people that are dedicating themselves to exposing Scientology and telling the truth about Scientology, it's quite small. It's probably a few hundred. Maybe I could
Oh
be
yeah.
wrong.
You know what, Pete? I was thinking about this the other day because you know how I've been using my stock phrase of I'm Joan Baez of 21st century. Scientology is my Vietnam. Well, I've reconsidered.
I've heard you say that a few times,
Cults, yeah, cults are my Vietnam.
yeah. Okay.
Scientology is me lie.
Okay, let me just stop you right there. Is it possible that there could be a cult that was nothing but beneficial to humanity
Then
and
it
that
wouldn't be a cult, it would be a faith.
aha. Okay, I'm glad I asked you that.
Well, you see, and everybody has a different definition, but I haven't heard a better word for abusive spiritual organization. I'm making finger quotes here, sorry.
No, that's good.
Abusive spiritual organization. I've not heard a better word for it than cult.
Okay, now you probably don't know this, but when you're actually in Scientology, the C word, does get mentioned. And Hubbard's response to it is, yeah, oh yeah, they call us a cult, but we're not a cult. A cult is a closed group, and there is no more open group than ourselves. And that's
Oh, bullshit.
yeah, and that's a Hubbard quote.
Yeah.
So Scientologists think, first of all, he's redefined the word cult to mean what he says it is, which is a closed group. I don't really think that is a definition of the word cult as we use it anyway. Hubbard says it is the definition of the word cult. Therefore, Scientologists are going to think and believe that that is what a cult is. I said that myself when I was in Scientology. So
Okay, so maybe that's something that I've got to consider when I'm speaking to Cylons if I ever get the chance. I've only done it once. And Tori says hi, by the way.
And tell Tori I will talk to her as soon as Yi and Mia finish talking. In fact, we could have a three-way.
Oh, Pete, you've answered my dreams, but I don't know how to set that up.
Let's see if I can invite. Let's see if I can drag. You don't mind, even though it's you and me talking right now?
No, not at all. This would be great. I love Tori.
Could you just message her and tell her that we're actually having a recorded interview and we're going to be talking, just so that she does.
Oh yeah,
know.
I already said that. I said sorry. Skype recording a podcast with Pete.
Oh well, in that case, if I invite her to the group, then we can.
Yeah.
Hi, Tori. Can you hear me? Oh, hang on. Let me just press this call. Technology, huh?
Technology.
So after the group, yeah. Is this going to work? I don't know. I pressed the button. Nothing's happening. Okay.
While you're doing that, I wanted to address your question. Because
I can't find the button I need to hit. If you find it, hit it on yours.
I know less about this than you do. On Skype and all of that. But in any case, the word cult does have those inflammatory and it does meanings, and it also does have those meanings that sometimes put up the thought blocks. And also there's the other thing of, I won't say the company name, of course, because we're recording, but there's this wonderful company that I still buy their products, even though I'm a little disgusted. They have these most wonderful plastic stupid toys that you could ever imagine. You know, if you wanted a wind-up walking glow-in-the-dark dinosaur skeleton, they are your people.
Well, so they would make something that you asked them to make. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, no, it's just it's basically they're your warehouse of plastic shit that you never knew you needed until you saw it in their website. But in any case, but they had marketed themselves as join the cult of company name. And they started doing this marketing just in 97 when I was just getting out of my own group. And I wrote them the most angry letter. And they very gently said, well, cult only means sect or religion.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Okay, let's just say like Scientologists hate to be called a cult. They absolutely hate it. And there's the very famous case in London going back to 2008 when they had a 15-year-old boy arrested because he had a sign that had the word cult on it. Now, obviously, that came to nothing, but they actually tried to take this poor 15-year-old kid to court over the use of the word cult. So, of course, what did that do? Everyone started using the word cult. Now, in France, they call them a sect, which is basically the French word for cult. So, yeah.
For cult, yes, sect.
But the interesting thing is, when I was a Scientologist, I didn't consider that I was in a cult. Now that I've left, I know I was in a cult.
Oh, yeah, because you talked about, they said that was not open. And who was it who said the best way to lie is stare the person right in the face and say exactly the opposite of the truth?
That's exactly what Scientologists do. And it's what I do.
And we're an open group. My master said, we're not a cult, we're a magical order.
Okay, if Hubbard had said that.
Yeah,
that's pretty fascinating.
Oh, yeah, well, the thing is, because of the whole Crowley link and the fact that my group was Crowley-based, I've got a totally other, different, backwards view of all the Crowley elements in Scientology. In fact, it's really almost chilling to me because once you read Hubbard's affirmations and once you read Hubbard's you read and take with a healthy grain of salt Nibbs's memoirs. It almost feels like Hubbard was actually writing this stuff to do actual physical harm, a spiritual harm, psychic harm, if you believe in that. I don't, but if he did, that's a pretty bad spell to work. That's a...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's evil.
I mean, I have absolutely no doubts about that. From listening to the talk that Jamie DeWolf gave at Flagdown, where, again, we're going back to Nibbs' source. But one of the things was he'd said something about we are the mind fuckers and we're going to fuck their minds. And
well, Pete, you know what convinced me? And actually gave me a very sleepless night. 15 years out of my group, I actually really felt chilled listening to Jamie DeWolf when I stumbled on it. I forget, about a month before we made contact, and that was the opening sentences were exactly the rhythm of Crowley.
So, how much Crowley did you study then? Because he's written about 3 or 4 books, or has he done more than that?
He also wrote some very bad fiction. But also he wrote quite a few, including one thing called the Book of the Law, which is this little red book that you're supposed to hand to somebody and never sell, always give away, and there's a code word you have to use, and there was a whole bunch of, let's see, there's 777, which is a big, thick, white book. I just recently gave these all to a friend because I didn't want them anymore. So I'd have to look it up. It was not nearly as many as Crowley, but a good many, and the rhythm and the tone is unmistakable.
So for you, it was watching Jamie DeWolf at Flagdown that kind of brought you into this, was it? Or...
not quite. It was in fact Tori, believe it or not.
I believe anything of that woman.
I know. That's why we all love her. What it was, Pete, was, that I'm working on a tarot deck. And interesting because as atheistic as I am now, I still believe in tarot as a form of self-narration mindfully used to find where your brain's pointing. But that's an entirely different podcast. But in any case, I found myself doing these, excuse me, Jack, Mom's talking. Sorry.
It worked.
In any case, I was doing these extremely exquisite, very hard to do images that involved a lot of close work, a lot of close concentration, and a lot of staring at a screen. And I needed something engaging to listen to. And if it hadn't been for Tori's escape story, I would have gone batshit insane. So that's what, and then I found Jeff's
Yeah.
podcasts and Karen Carrier's. Oh, made me scream with laughter when Tori and Karen do that reg cycle, play a reg
Yeah.
cycle. So that was it. It was basically over a summer while I was doing my deck that slowly brought me in. And then you called me and said, "Would you like to sing for the troops?" And that kicked me into full
Yeah.
gear.
Yeah. And that was a wonderful thing. And you haven't stopped composing since, I believe.
No, it's interesting because I don't know if I told you this before, but before I composed for you, I had been going through such a dry spell. I usually, when I'm in my active good self, writing, about one or two songs, maybe one song a month at actual average. They come and go in waves, but it would average out to one song every month. I had not written a song for 2.5 years, Pete.
Whoa. Wow.
Before I wrote, "If they're OT, drag 'em down to the flag and then drain them of euros and dollars and pounds."
Do you know something? Don't take this the wrong way, but you're a very a piratey kind of a voice, if you don't mind me saying.
Bless you, I love it.
Oh,
I've always thought that there was something very roguish about my spirit. When you get to my books, actually, they're
yeah. Actually,
pirates.
I started reading. Yeah, just before
Oh,
I started talking to you because I thought, you know,
since we can plug
well,
my book, maybe. I don't.
let's plug your book. I'm reading
The
the
Scorpion
Scorpion
Files
Files
by
Deluxe
S.G.
Edition
Robinson.
by Spike G. Robinson, S.G.
S.G.
Robinson. Yeah.
Robinson.
That's not Skype, that's Spike. Now, talking about Skype, I'm trying
That's
to add Tori to this. Now, I see that she's like gone off Skype now, but
Yeah, she says she has to go somewhere
oh,
for about
okay.
a half
Why the
hour or
hell couldn't
so.
I add her? Like, I've had three ways on Skype before. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, never mind that.
I don't know, Pete. I've never done it before, so you'd have to.
Yeah, I need an expert sat next to me. I don't have one at the moment. So, it fascinates me though because one of the things that Scientology has always denied is the actual Crowley link. I mean, they acknowledge
Yeah,
that he
yeah,
knew Jack Parsons and that he stayed in the place, but they say
mhm,
he went in there as an undercover agent to bust up the black magic
yeah,
ring. Now, you would
yeah,
think otherwise,
yeah.
and so would I. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. The thing is, though, as a former practitioner, I can kind of understand because ritual magic still has a stigma. I'm living in a relatively liberal part of my
Right.
country, but there are parts of my country still that I would have to fear for, at least people not being very friendly to me. People do get fired for being Wiccans. They're not supposed to be, but they are. I'm not Wiccan myself, but I've heard of people saying, "No, you're I have "Goddess bless the earth" bumper sticker on my car. That sometimes gets a finger.
Hmm.
It's basically there's a big hatred and fear of it because it's a different religion. Now, I want to point out as a former practitioner that just like, I hate to bring this up, but in Star Wars, The Force, there's two sides to this practice.
Yeah.
Yes, you could choose the evil side. The whole thing that Hubbard forgot, what Crowley forgot, what LaVey, who invented Satanism per se, forgot was "Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law" does not mean you can go around, rape, pillage, stab people in the back. What it means is you can do what you want, but you gotta take responsibility. If you do rape, if you do pillage, if you do stab your friends in your back, then be damn prepared to have people gather together and do it unto you.
Yeah. That's quite interesting and quite karmic, if I may use that word.
Yes, exactly. Karmic is the exact, because Wiccans actually say that anything you do will be done 3 times to you, which I don't believe because doesn't that doesn't stand up to physics.
I've heard that as well. And they do have
Yeah.
something similar in Scientology, and I'm trying to think of the exact wordage, and I can't. Um,
Can't you look it up in the binder? You're not supposed to. You're not supposed to. Oh, what do you call it? Paraphrase
I'm actually
anyway.
not allowed to do that in Scientology. You cannot do that. That is such a crime. You will be hung, drawn, quartered.
I don't understand why. If you want a religion to live, if you want a religion to thrive, if you want a religion to grow, you allow people to discuss it, bring their own take in on it. Tell if you're a Christian. I have had zillions of people tell me in their own words exactly what Jesus Christ means to them.
Yeah.
They have no problem telling me that.
So you think
and
that
other
Scientologists should be going around telling exactly what L. Ron Hubbard means to them and paraphrasing his wonderful words? That's
in their own
that's
words.
never going to work. You're not allowed to. I've actually offered so many times to talk to Scientologists in an open meeting. I would actually address a room full of 100 or even 1,000 Scientologists. And I would take Q&A and I would take it wherever it went. And you know something? They're not allowed to do that. That really raises a red flag right there. You're not allowed to discuss Scientology publicly. And it used to bother me because when I was a Scientologist, I used to go on the radio and talk to people about the anti-drugs campaign and, every campaign going. I was the local representative for everything. All the front groups were basically just me. I was every front group.
But you couldn't say what you believed in.
I totally lost my thread there. I just gone completely blank.
Sorry about that.
What was I saying? I have no idea.
That you used to go around and tell people, but you about the campaigns and everything.
Right.
However,
the point I was making is a Scientologist is not allowed to discuss Scientology publicly. No public debates. Period. Absolutely not. And when I was in, it used to slightly worry me a little bit. Why not? Why can't we talk about this? Surely telling people what we do and how wonderful it really is going to be helpful. The reason is, and this is actually so bloody simple. The reason is Scientology does not stand up to public debate. It gets torn down so easily. That's why they're not allowed to do it. Simply.
Because he knew it was made out of A, whole cloth, and B, deliberately made to have so many double binds,
nail on the head,
mind traps, and false that it couldn't. Whereas, the
same reason. The same reason he died a fugitive, and he did not ever go into a courtroom. Because when Scientology does go into a courtroom, and I've got to be careful what I say here, it doesn't stand up. I don't know
that's why they constantly delay. Exactly. That's why their standard tactic is constantly delay.
I don't know if we discussed it last time, Spike, about the New Zealand Charities Commission when they were asking questions, and I think 70% of the questions were, "Oh, we'll get back to you on that one." They couldn't answer simple questions. And when they were asked why their income had dropped by something like 2,000% since the Charities Commission started asking questions, they said that it was something to do with the foreign exchange rate. And I remember the chairman laughing, at that. So basically, what I'm saying, and I think what is important is to say, especially for any Scientologists, and also do listen to anything I do, by the way, is Scientology does not stand up to public scrutiny. It doesn't, and it can't. Now, can you remember what you're going to say? Because I cut you off there, and I feel guilty.
Oh, no, because I do, and it actually segues very well in. I'm also not just a pagan, I'm a Unitarian Universalist. Now, I don't know if this exists in Europe or not. I think we have some sister churches in Europe, right, Wally?
We do have Unitarians. Whether we have the Universalist variety, I have no idea. We've definitely got Irish ones,
though.
The
two faiths did kind of join here in the United States. And one of the things that I love the best is, and for those who don't know, it's basically the ultimate of non-denominationalism. Just because you're a Buddhist and you're a Muslim and you're a Jew and you're a Christian doesn't mean you can't sit in the same pew and talk about, mostly recycling and civil rights.
Isn't that fantastic?
Every Sunday, love it. I mean, I haven't gone in ages, I shouldn't say it, but it's a beautiful thing. One of the things I love the best, though, is something called What I Believe, where somebody from the congregation is is welcomed to go on up and say, this is my personal
Okay.
theology, and this is why it works for me.
Yeah, I like that idea. Let me just tell you something very quickly because I've thought of it and it's
Mm-hmm,
reasonably
mm-hmm.
relevant. I have a friend who happens to be a journalist, and he's very blonde. Is he ginger? He's borderline ginger. Okay. And he was recently in the South, or the way down south there, where the Negroes talk to gateposts and
Yeah,
all that kind
yeah,
of thing.
y'all.
Yeah, they talk to him. Anyway, he was down south, and this guy went to a church service, and it was one of those, like, where everybody's black. Okay. And he sat in this church, and of course, people got interested in this, like, almost ginger white guy. And
Oh
he
yeah,
said he had some absolutely fantastic conversations with people
oh yeah.
after the service. And I thought there's a lot of things going here. One, how bloody brave was that guy? Because I'm sure that a lot of white Americans are terrified of black Americans.
There are, and they're very unwisely so. Because let me say, when I, just to briefly as parenthesize one of my own, when I was in graduate school in Toledo, Ohio, or near Toledo, Ohio, rather, there was this bar that only the black folk went to, but it had some of the best jazz in there. As soon as these folks knew that I was neither there to make trouble nor be rude to them, but just there to listen to the music, they adopted me.
Yeah,
They basically made sure somebody would walk me to my car at night
that's
to make
amazing.
sure
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
yeah, because it's only, and yes, there are just as many black racists as there are white racists, very sadly, but your general average person, as soon as they know that you're okay with them, they're okay with
yeah. I
you.
have to absolutely agree with that. I couldn't agree with you more. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but going back to, like, Scientology, like, the
Mm-hmm.
Scientologists claim to have Sunday services. It's a complete facade. But if you
Oh no,
if
yeah.
you were to go to one, they would probably try and sell you something and try and get you to see how wonderful Hubbard was, and
And make you listen to poor Larry Anderson doing that horrible
I
thing.
don't think they show that one anymore. But anyway,
No,
um,
I,
but yeah, that's the point. They would make you follow the accepted line. So, like, I mean, here's
uh,
another example. A student journalist spoke to me, then he went on to speak to the Scientologist and said, "Oh no, you have to come back and speak to our PR person." So, an individual Scientologist can't talk publicly to a member of the public who asks about Scientology. Yet they have the dissemination drill where they're allowed to talk to a raw public, but it's to
but not
find
too much. They couldn't
no.
tell them the Xeno story.
Well, if they knew the Xenu story, because let's not
Exactly.
forget that unless you've done OT3, you don't even know that. So
There's no point of total dissemination.
that's right. That's right. So you can't be free to talk to anybody about Scientology if you're a
Mm-hmm.
Scientologist. So that's not good. I mean, that's almost like a
It's
guaranteed.
not. It's not
It's like a
kosher.
guaranteed suicide button.
And I mean that
Self
actually.
destruct. It's got. It's an inbuilt self destructor. I think anyway.
And that's the thing is that's probably once again part of the design.
Do you think
He
so?
designed this to make money for himself and probably whoever came after him,
Yeah.
i.e., his friends, and then he didn't fucking care. He just, and also he wanted his name stomped into
Of
eternity.
course, that was the driving aim of the whole thing. It wasn't. There was no other aim in the man's mind other than to make himself so well known. Well, that's definitely going
And
to
you know
happen.
what?
That's going to happen.
You know what though? That is the one thing that makes Hubbard even partially relatable to me
In what way? You want to?
is
You want the same thing? Okay.
yes,
Well, let me
but
just put your mind at rest for a while. You want to do it by writing some amazing books and singing some amazing songs and doing some great
And
artwork.
help
Have
people.
you
And
heard
help.
Hubbard's songs?
Yeah, yeah, I know. My God.
Have
He
you heard
does.
him
Let's not even
singing?
bring that. No, no, no. I don't want to get that in my
No,
head.
no, don't.
Um, no, but the thing is also, so there is a piece of me that does understand the vanity or the that big sane thing, fame thing rather. But at the same time, it's how you do it,
Yeah,
how you
yeah,
choose it, how you
interesting.
work it, and who you are to begin with.
Yeah. Well, years ago I played in a band, and if we'd got famous and made loads of money, that would have been fantastic. But we weren't
Hmm.
particularly going out for that. That wasn't like the driving force. I knew some band at the time where that was the driving force, and they
Hmm.
got that, so they got what they wanted. But I don't know. I know. I think it's much more. Well, for me, it's much more important to be um, choosing my words. Uh, but
That's okay.
a decent human being, and I think
Yeah,
you shall be known by what you do rather than what you believe. Coming back to our very loose topic of conversation here.
yeah,
Um,
that's very true. I
Hubbard says, would you believe this? Hubbard actually says something like, "By their actions you shall know them." Now I do believe that's a
Mhm.
biblical quote that he's kind of
That is a
right.
biblical quote.
Okay, so but I've always found that one to be quite useful
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
because I look at what people do rather than what they say. And Hubbard actually
Mhm.
encourages Scientologists to do this. But here again, I don't want to start talking
Oh,
about the
he says he
contradictions.
encourages people.
Yeah, exactly.
He says he encourages people, but again, that's one of those barefaced
Well,
lies.
I mean, there are so many contradictions in Scientology, in my opinion. I know there are people that can argue there are none, but I think there are. And Hubbard tells people, look, don't listen. By their actions, you shall know them. Look at what they do rather than what they say. And yet, if you apply that to him, it all falls apart. So yeah,
Exactly. That's the thing is that once again, it's another barefaced lie of saying, we are not doing this,
yeah,
but really doing
yeah. I'm
it.
not lying to you. I could never lie to
Yeah.
you. Right.
It's an amazing technique. It's called gaslighting.
Yeah, I've only recently came across that term, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know if you read one of the recent Mike Rinder posts from a fella. I think his name's Potter or Porter, and
I saw
yeah,
that. I have bookmarked it for later consumption, but have not
okay,
yet read
I'd
it. So
recommend
don't
that because
spoil it.
he
No.
just simply talks about checking, security checking for people who don't know
Mm.
what that is, and he describes that so well. It got me thinking to times when I've been on the receiving end of that particular treatment.
Oh,
But
I can't even imagine what that
it's
must have
pretty
been.
awful. But there are others who are calling that black Dianetics um, to differentiate that from standard Dianetics, which is supposedly to help people. Personally, I think we're just like playing around with words. I think it's all designed to create as much mayhem as possible, and it is
Though,
absolutely
and
no
I
use
want.
to anybody. So.
Mhm. I would say this though. There is a very brilliant young man that I'm talking with in Texas, who is really convinced at taking the source material that Hubbard stole from and going through it and actually finding out what it was that drew good people in, that made them go, "Hey, that kind of makes
Yeah,
sense."
yeah,
That's the thing. And if he even starts using some of the terms
yeah,
or it's who knows what they might come up with if it's applied with some freedom, insight, open mind, and not relying on popping a gray, a pink, and a bottle of Chardonnay and sitting down at the
yeah.
typewriter.
No, no, you're absolutely right. I think that was definitely part of my cure, if I can call it cure. Um, which of course acknowledges that I was probably ill.
It wasn't, well,
But
I call it recovery.
yeah, recovery is a better word. I
It's like,
definitely had to find where did Hubbard get the idea from? What's the original say? Did he improve it? Did he make it worse? Did he try and use it to manipulate and control? And one of the last things for me to dissolve in my Scientology belief system was the tone scale. The emotional tone scale.
oh,
Ooh, yeah.
there's an interesting thread on SP, the one of our message boards, talking about the tone scale.
Yeah.
It got a little heated, but they always get a little heated. But what I was going to say was, if you're thinking about what to call getting out, healing, curing, waking up, one of the best things to remember is being in a cult is rather like a spiritual rape.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that.
It actually takes away your power. And when somebody's taking away your power, that's rape.
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to add into that controlling people by fear.
Exactly. Controlling, let's go through Hassan's bite model. Behavior, controlling people's behavior, controlling the information which they send out to the world and the information which they come into it.
Yep.
Thought. Oh, what is it? Thought. So controlling what you think, how you think, and environment. Emotion.
And that's the tone scale. The tone scale totally controls your emotion. Hubbard's utterances totally control your thought. Your information is controlled because you reach the point where you think that the only genius on earth was L. Ron Hubbard, despite all the evidence that suggests he was absolutely a complete buffoon and a blithering bloody idiot.
Pete, can I ask you something? Were you in when the so-called Messiah brief, what was it called? Messiah brief, or when he actually put out the one that Nancy Manny talks about?
He was dead when I got in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I got in 1987.
How did you join? He was dead. My goodness.
Yeah, how did I?
I'm sorry. I shouldn't say it like that. I mean, I got into a 2.5-year nightmare because I gave some stringy-haired idiot a tarot reading at a coffee house. So
I got sucked in like anybody else. I got sucked in because the entirety of it wasn't revealed to me, because I was only shown enough to whet my appetite, like the dangling carrot. You can call it anything you like, and it's all designed to do exactly that. Even the bridge is designed to take you in step by step. Looking back on what I did, I don't regret anything, but I certainly would never do it again. And I want to thank an Australian friend for that quote. I love it. I don't regret it, but I certainly wouldn't do it again.
But again, that's a beautiful quote.
If you want a quote from me, you can make that one mine, but I borrowed it from somebody else.
Actually, did you see your card? Your quote is now officially down with this sort of thing.
I like that. I like that. So yeah, we are certainly shooting the breeze tonight, aren't we?
There was something else that I wanted to bring in there. I was trying to think of it. Bite control theory and I wouldn't do it again. What was it before we said I wouldn't do it again? I
think we were talking about like controlling the thought, controlling the information.
And how people get it. Not non-disclosure. Because like in Steve Hassan and Zimbardo have been saying how the really shocking things that are now happening with such radical groups as ISIS or, Al-Qaeda are that, these kids don't know that they're going into somewhere where they're going to eventually become mad enough to strap bombs to themselves or drive a plane into a tower. They're not thinking, I'm going to go into a cult, but they go in because they're angry young men and somebody says something that resonates, and then they go up another step, and then they say, these guys are really bad, and then they go in another step. And, it's slow indoctrination, and that's what we've really got to learn how to fight. So that's why I'm saying that although Scientology is very small, it's this beautiful little miniature, and I don't mean to de-emphasize the hurt and the pain, but it is almost like a microcosm of exactly how this nightmare starts, and please divinity, how it can be cut down and give us this gift of precedent so that we can look at how this sort of stuff starts, how we can stop it, how we can get so no young person who's really a seeker, really passionate about the world, wants to change it, gets trapped by somebody and ends up killing themselves or others.
I think you're absolutely right. We've touched on how, I mean, and I say it all the time, that it's not about beliefs, it's about behavior. But how much do you
Mhm.
think? Do you think that we kind of programmed, or we have this inbuilt thing that we have to believe something?
That's a very good question, Steve. Pete, God darn, I'm sorry. I called you by somebody else's name in
Hey,
the middle of a
I've
podcast.
called you Skype, so I mean, you can call me anything you
Yeah, but
like.
that's a spoonerism, Pete.
Yeah, well, Chris and Steve are pretty close to Pete, so you know.
Yeah, yeah. Any case, because if you look in your new neurology, they are now finding we have two lovely little organs just in the back of our brain, at the bottom of our cerebellum, where our midbrain, I believe it's our midbrain meets our cerebellum, that called the amygdala and the
You said
hippocampus.
numerology there, right?
No,
Oh,
neurology.
neurology. Okay, I was
Neurology.
struggling for a minute there because I actually thought you said numerology, and
Oh, no, no,
I,
no,
I'm
neurology.
trying to. Okay,
Neurology.
now I'm with you. Now I'm with you.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
trying to tie numbers into what you were saying and think, is this some more Crowley bullshit or what? Like,
Yeah. Okay, Pete. Here's a good reference. Is if I'm talking about numbers, you're not talking to me.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
Any
So
case,
let's explore this idea.
the amygdala is actually a tiny little organ that has been shown to support feelings of not only community but a sense of belonging, a sense of trust, and also it has been shown that a very odd, if it goes off or is injured in a way, there is a very certain type of mania that results where the patient will believe that they are God. And that when we are engaged in what we think is relationship with the divine, that amygdala is firing off and sending things to the hippocampus, which is one of our great emotional centers that receives. I believe it receives or produces. I'm not a neurologist, so I can't. But in some way, it's responsible for the neurotransmitters that are involved in oxytocin, trust,
Okay,
serotonin.
so basically, we have to believe things in order to feel good.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that we are wired to believe in things to make us a stronger community.
Aha. And would that be going back to like, like man, the hunter-gatherer, caveman days? Right.
Evolutionary.
Okay.
We've just also discovered, just as a side point to show this, that a certain amount of people are nocturnal. Now, this might sound like a total sidebar, but if you imagine that some people are always going to be nocturnal, there's always somebody going to be awake to guard the camp at night.
Oh God, yeah.
Also, if you look at homosexuality, the number of homosexuals actually evens out to the amount of extra adults needed to raise a child.
Okay. I thought for a minute you were going to say it was correlated with nighttime camp guards, but anyway, that's another thing.
Well, that's a very nice thing to think about, but we can think about that later.
Okay. No, this is absolutely fascinating because I'm finding that more and more answers can be found when we look at what we don't know about primitive societies and cavemen and
Mm-hmm,
the hunter-gatherers and the evolutionary thing. Like, okay,
mm-hmm.
we have to do this
And
because.
neurology and science, and that's why I'm trying to fit whatever beliefs I have. If they are debunked by the laws of physics, then they got to go. And the Dalai Lama himself said that.
Yeah, it's a pity that L. Ron Hubbard didn't read his local newspapers when he was writing the history of man and was writing about
Oh, Piltdown
The
Man.
Piltdown Man. Yeah, yeah. He's got very big teeth. Well, of course he has. It's not his jawbone.
Who was it? It was an orangutan, right?
I'm not
Or
sure.
was it?
It was an orangutan something, a chimpanzee something else, and a human blah blah.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
they didn't have any Homo novus parts there for some reason.
Oy, oy,
Well,
oy, oy, oy,
why
oy, oy.
did I just get a mental impression of a very large penis-shaped bone when I said that? But anyway, never mind.
I'm not sure, but thank you for sharing the
Yeah,
vision,
Homo
Pete.
novus. It's a big cock-shaped bone, in the center of its skull.
I actually thought of that too, and I'm not sure why. Who
Maybe we're just
knows?
talking ourselves into an area that our ancestors were in 40,000 years ago or something. I don't know.
Paleoanthropology has always been a love of mine. Also, paleolinguistics. I don't know if you're familiar with the works of John
No, I'm
McWhorter.
not, and I didn't even know what it was called until you said that.
Oh, well, as a further sidetrack on a sidetrack, one of the most useful classes I ever took at university was etymology, the study of words and how they're put
That
together.
no, that's always interested me. I'm now I'm now thinking, okay, so we've got these like people, whether they live in a cave or not, doesn't matter,
Mhm.
but they're sat around a campfire at night and they're talking.
But first, they're singing.
Ooh,
We had we had music and chant before we had language. That's why it touches us so deeply.
oh my, of course.
Yeah. Before there was, hey Bill, how you going? It's good. I'm sure that the first conversation was about the weather. I'm sure of it.
Not about music.
But but no, the music was
Yeah.
oh.
Look,
I actually had a
I
very gifted professor in university who showed his big theory was that all music followed the 1 to 5 to 1 that was an extension of this primal scream
that
arch.
sounds boring, but anyway, go on.
Oh, I loved it. I was
Really?
fascinated
Okay,
with it.
that doesn't
It was he went
that doesn't ring
oh,
true with me.
oh,
But anyway,
oh.
so this
Yeah.
is absolutely fascinating. I'm thinking the first conversation was probably I don't like that song you're singing.
I
Sing
don't like
something
that
else.
story.
Change the record.
You're flat. Damn it, Bill, you're flat. Uh, you know,
Oh God! Oh
but
God!
but
She can't sing.
now you see, I don't think that tonality came about until long afterwards, because, quite frankly, listen to some of the folks who are as close as possible to humanity Mark One.
Hmm.
That is the folks who are closest to the default setting, and you're going to find them in Central Africa. And their songs, you don't need to be on tune because they're joyous songs. They're chanting. People are dancing and they're singing, and there's no way to dance and sing and stay on tune at the same time, and nobody
You know
cares.
something? If I could find the funding, I think I'd go around the world playing "Thank You for Listening" to primitive peoples and seeing how they reacted.
What did the primitive people ever do to you,
No,
Pete?
okay, I take that back. I'll just get some guinea pigs. They put up with anything. Yeah.
Excuse me, I'll turn you into PETA if you play that to rodents.
Uh,
Actually, when I was in high school, I did a study on emotional stability and music
right.
with mice, with
Wow.
white mice.
Tell me, what was the
I would play rock and roll music to one mouse, classical music to the other, and no music at all to the third, and try to find out who could run through the maze the fastest.
and?
Um, it really wasn't a good experiment because it turned out that it was basically down to the individual personalities of the mice.
Ah,
The rock and roll mouse actually turned out to just be a very hyper mouse,
interesting.
even beyond the experiment, because what happened was the experiment ran too long, and my biology teacher walks to the classroom and says, and so I got to keep them longer and they didn't get turned back in the pet store. So my biology teacher walks in class and says, is there anybody who wants 3 white mice? Otherwise, I'm going to gas them after school.
What?
I was down in the principal's office in a moment going, oh, to my mother on the phone.
I can understand that. Yeah.
And we had a habit trail. They were Achilles, Hector, and Ulysses.
Greek mice. Hmm.
I was reading Ovid at the time.
Oh,
Or no, I was reading Homer at
yeah.
the
Well, that
time.
makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm just amazed where our conversation has actually taken us. And I know I said I wanted to talk for like half an hour. We're coming up to an hour, Spike. Do you realise that?
Yes, I see.
Have we discussed anything that might be of interest to anybody who is engaged in the same struggle as we are? Uh,
Well, let's talk about that for a minute because there are some very interesting things besides Alex Gibney's wonderful going clear. There's a lot of excitement going on because things are coming to a head and everybody
yeah,
knows
I
it.
get that feeling too, but people have been there before, and
And I am just recently new as
right,
of this second push into the fight, but our our network news is paying attention. People are sitting up paying attention. They're crashing, they're burning. All they need right now, and I'm trying to actually here, I want to push another thing is I am trying to do my celebrity Twitter project. You're aware of that, where I'm twittering various celebrities and saying, you're too good a person to believe in
right.
this. You're too good a person not to look at the truth. Please look at the truth. I have been banned from Nancy Cartwright's page so
Good.
far. And yeah, but I keep sending to my current target right now is not a Scientologist and being very, very openly, they're saying he's not a Scientologist over at the
Is it
bunker,
Will?
is Will
Okay.
Smith. And what I've been doing is, well, Will Smith. And if Will Smith ever hears this, okay, Will Smith, you know what it is. Go look on Clambake, look on ex-Scientology Kids, look on Xenu TV. If you can't if you can't look at that and not be disgusted, you've got to speak out. Farrakhan is being entrapped by Scientology. Hundreds of really beautiful, wonderful, intelligent African Americans are going into Scientology blindfolded because Farrakhan says so. Now, well, who's bigger in the African American community? Will Smith. Will Smith, you've got to speak out.
I couldn't.
You can change
I
this.
couldn't
You
agree
can
more.
reverse this. You can make it.
It's a great job you're doing talking to Twitter celebrities. Whether they read it, I don't know. I'm sure they have
Yeah.
teams of
Oh, Rory's
people.
back.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, and I still don't know how to add her. So listen, we're coming up to almost an hour, so I think we've probably talked long enough. And
I think
and
we have. Yeah, my throat's getting a
if
little
we
bit.
get one person to listen and get something from what we've discussed, then I am happy.
Crack in the shroom shell,
Yeah.
Pete. And after Scientology falls, we could do a regular weekly Skype show and just chat, and I bet it'd always be
When
interesting.
Scientology falls, we will enter the aftermath phase. Listen,
Hey, like I was. Yeah.
we're
Sorry.
on the countdown now to 60 minutes, and if you can say what you're going to say there in 50 seconds, then by all means do.
No is another tangent. So what I want to say is we're fighting the good fight, and I thank you for fighting
I
it, Pete.
thank you, Skype, for joining the good fight and for bringing your wonderful personality. Actually, it's not your personality, it's you, okay? It's the same thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your artistic endeavors, your enthusiasm, even your craziness. I can love that too. Are you listening, Wally?
Oh, thank you. He's waving and saying, have a good night.
We all bring something, and I'm on to the last 10 seconds. Skype! I need to call you Skype again. Spike, thank you so much, and we shall talk soon.
Of course. You have a great evening now, Pete.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Okay, you can stay on. I'm going to stop the recording at that point. I think that went really well. I think
Cool.
we talked about